Subsequent to that, within hours, I had emergency surgery, and I flatlined twice. So for me, it took a literal dying and coming back to really reestablish all of the things we put aside: boundaries, relationships, health, what does wealth mean? What does success mean? Family.
Hi, I'm Kelly Kessler, and I'm the host of the podcast, Rewiring Health. Whether you're an entrepreneur who feels like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, trying to juggle all aspects of business, or you're a corporate employee who feels like you're pulled in multiple directions, trying to excel and meet deadlines, or you're a passionate parent who feels like you pour your heart and soul into your children and there's not much left for you, you're in the right place. This podcast is designed to give you tools, tips, and strategies around how you can cultivate balance within your life, feel energized and present, and stop feeling like you're compromising your health and inner harmony. I am so glad you're here. If you feel like you're constantly sacrificing yourself and living in survival mode, but holding out for that day, that one day it may calm down, one day you may finally be able to prioritize yourself, this is a must listen. Stacey Luces shares her incredible story of how she faced near death, and it changed her life and changed the way she looked at life. And I am so honored to be able to have this conversation with Stacey because this is something that's impacted my life deeply as well, and a very close family member. Stacey Luces is the founder of an Evolution Executive Coaching, the president of Fem City International, an Amazon best-selling author for the anthology We Rise in Power, Amplifying Women of Color and Our Voices for Change, and a board-certified executive and life coach. Stacey is absolutely incredible, and I'm so honored to share this conversation with you. Welcome back to another episode of Rewiring Health. So honored to be joined by Stacey Luces. So thank you so much for being here, Stacey.
You're welcome, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I know this is going to be a great conversation. We have connected through a coaching program, and so there's so many things I want to dive into, but I just first want to hear about what brought you to what you do today, the people you help today. If you just give some of your backstory of what brought you to where you are.
I want to say that if I had to pick one word, it would be my age. So I'm in my 40s, and I've got teenage kids and I've got elder parents. And so trying to juggle a full-time career in the past, corporate, I worked for the federal government, trying to raise teens and trying to also help my aging and ailing parents. And also kind of think about where I want to be in the next 10, 12 years, right? Like we're looking at 60 coming up in 15 years. And so for me, being at that crossroads was super, super challenging, and still is, frankly. But I went through a series of health events, emotional events, just spiritual events that I guess the common term is midlife crisis. I like to call it a midlife awakening, where I had to change so many things in my life to really get back to my center and not only find myself, but show up better for everybody that not only was depending on me, but for those I love. So now I help women kind of navigate that space also.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm sure so many people listening to this can resonate with that, where you're being pulled in all these directions. There's only so much of you to go around. And probably I would imagine that you're putting yourself on the back burner in many ways, maybe previously, while you're trying to help everybody else. Have you experienced that where it's like everyone demanded so much of you that you came last often?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even on the burner.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like all parts of me deteriorated in the sense of I just became ingredients. Like I wasn't even a recipe ready to be on the burner. And it took a long time for me to realize that, doing self-care and self-love and having my core values and honestly putting myself first and filling my cup would enable me to then be better for everyone else. It took a long time. I like to call it the unconditioning. I don't know if that resonates with you, but definitely that self-sacrificial thing was not working for me.
Oh yeah, I can totally relate to that. It's like that you abandon yourself in the effort to make sure everybody else is taken care of, and then you don't even realize like it's like so subconscious. You're like, this is what I should do, and you don't realize the impacts of it as you do that years and years. So I can totally relate to that. When you talk about your awakening and realizing that this was happening, what do you think was the catalyst for that you could have this awareness? Because I know that's something so many women especially struggle with, is that they don't feel like they're in the right place. They feel like they're running on fumes, but they don't realize what's going on. What do you think was the awareness that you gained in this period?
For me, a couple of years ago, my kids were a lot smaller. They were both under 10. And I was at the pinnacle of my career. I was traveling all over the country. I was hobnobbing with many intellects, doing important work for communities and riding this career high, and really not paying attention to me. And I knew I wasn't feeling well, and I knew things weren't quite right, and I knew, all of the things. I maybe had 15, 20 pounds to lose. I hadn't been to the doctor. I wasn't working out the way I should. Like all of the things we quote unquote know, but never actually implement. We think we have time. I was in that pocket, and I got extremely sick. And I still went to work. I remember running a temp of like way over 103, and I honestly showed up for work, ran a strategic planning offsite. At 2 o'clock, I just couldn't keep my head up, went to the nurses station in our building. I worked in Washington, D.C. at the time. And she said, your temperature is so high, you need to go to the ER. And I still didn't do it. I totally, I don't know why my phone keeps ringing like this. You know what it is? My old job did not take me off of their emergency response. I'm still being called into work a year later after I left. Let's put it that way.
Oh my gosh.
Ghost of Stacey. I'm like, leave me alone.
Here's real life, you're still, yeah.
And for background, I worked for FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency here in the U.S., if any of you are international. And when things go bad, wildfires, hurricanes, whatever, we are emergency responders. And so we are called out of our literal bed to go help people. So a year later, I left that job. And a year later, I'm still getting things. Anyway, back to, so I was super sick, still didn't go to the doctor, took NyQuil, slept it off, got up the next morning, was worse. To cut a long story short, I went to the urgent care, and they called me an ambulance and said, we got to send you to the ER. And I was, it's bad. When the urgent care is like, hey, we can't deal with you, go to the ER. Yeah. And so subsequent to that, within hours, I had emergency surgery, and I flatlined twice. So for me, it took a literal dying and coming back to really reestablish all of the things we put aside: boundaries, relationships, health, what does wealth mean? What does success mean? Family. And I know for a lot of the women, so I'm an executive and life coach, and for a lot of the women that come to me, they think they have time to fix these things, and they're just exploring a career change. And for me, I always say I don't know many people that died like that and had the opportunity to come back to change things. Yeah. And I often give this speech, and I ask for a show of hands, and it's either nobody or one lone person. And so for me, the sense of urgency and the imperative of getting back on track, and I know it's December, everybody's in that reflective mode going into 2024, we think we have time. And so for me, I legitimately, coming out of that, the recovery was hard. It entailed relocating to, we now live in Florida. I always hated the cold, and I figured I would retire and move somewhere warm. And after that, I was like, I'm not going to squander any time I have. I'm going to quote unquote retire now. Yeah. So we're like 12 minutes, 15 minutes from the beach. People thought we were crazy to live our established careers in DC and move out here. But everything had to change. Everything had to change. And so, yeah, for me, it was this drastic life-altering event. For many women, I find it tiny little layers of neglect over the course of weeks and months and years, and before you know it, decades.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're stuck in your 40s and 50s and you're like looking around like, oh my God, is this it?
Yeah.
Is this it? Is there anything else?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's crucial. And I want to thank you for, having podcasts like these and sharing messages and bringing folks on that whatever is going to work for you, go do it. Whether it's your health first, relationships first, there's so many people, healers out there, coaches, whatever, that are standing by to help, and go do the thing, right? Because I'm lucky, but I also know I have work every day to do
Yeah.
on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's imperative that you start now, because if you put it off, you may not. In my case, I almost missed out on the opportunity to see my children grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for you with your brother, we talked about that in a
Yeah.
separate conversation. For you, that sense of urgency,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how we knew our kindred spirits, kind of the
100%.
same, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And just for anyone who hasn't gotten caught up on that, I did an episode, is episode 100, and honor my brother. But what you say speaks so deeply to me, because unfortunately my brother didn't realize he didn't have time either. And he passed away a few months ago at the age of 41 for many of the same things that you experienced, that those small layers of sacrificing yourself, compromising yourself, abandoning yourself in the name of a greater mission, which was his work and what he did. And he also had a very stressful job, medical record security, and it just accumulated. So when you speak of that and you talk about flatlining, it's like, it hits hard, because you don't know. And when you say you don't know if you have time, you don't know, and that's the thing for anyone listening. If there's one thing you can take from this, it is do it now. You don't know if you have those 5 years to get to retirement. You don't know if you have those 5 years or whatever it is. You just don't know. And so I'm so grateful for you sharing your story, because that's truly, I believe, is like the gift that you've been given, that you've experienced that, and you were able to come back and now share that message and now guide people in that journey of actually taking the leap to do what they were here to do, to discover their purpose, to live life with passion and not just go through the motions of what they think they should be doing. So I'm so grateful for you sharing your story.
And I'm grateful to you also for having the courage to not only share your brother's story, but carry forth
Mm-hmm.
what you learned from that experience, some of which are the most painful in our lives. And I think that folks too listening, it's not just women, right? Like most of my clients are women. I do work with men, but men also are grinding, right? Like really just out there hitting the pavement, doing all the things. And I do want to say that on the surface, a lot of us look okay.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of us are like amazingly look okay. We're dressed, full makeup, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's those underlying systems. Our bodies are made up of so many systems: lymphatic, circulatory, adrenal, right? There's so many systems that are important to our well-being. And our well-being encompasses all parts of us: spiritual, emotional, all of the things, intellectual, energy, productivity, all the things we need to be successful. And we don't see the impact that systemic stress, overwhelm, lack of fulfillment, boredom, loneliness, anger, right? FOMO.
Yeah.
We don't see the impact on our adrenal system or our system that doesn't know, hey, it's not fight or flight. I'm just okay.
Yeah.
Because we are constantly feeding it this message that, oh my God, we've got to get this done now. And it thinks that saber-toothed tiger is around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the heart attacks and the strokes and in my case, autoimmune illness,
Mm-hmm.
all of those chronic things happen. And you're like, no, we've got to deal with it for life. Mm-hmm. Or we're not lucky, like in the case of your brother, right? But his legacy is going to live on through you mm-hmm. and those that knew him. But we just can't see the things that are happening.
That's it, 100%. And it is, it's those buildups. And it's like, if you ignore the little signs that you get along the way, it's not that it shuts up, it just yells louder. And then it starts yelling louder in the case of
it drops the mountain on you.
That's it. Like, in case of autoimmune disorder, the flatlining that you experience, and heart attacks and stroke, it's going to yell louder until you actually acknowledge it and actually take care of yourself and slow down and really acknowledge that you are worthy of your own time and energy. And it's unfortunate that for many, so you're stuck in that vicious cycle of feeling like you have no option, or you feel stuck or trapped. And there's a lot of messaging around that you get from, society, or maybe your job, that like, nope, this is what we all do, and this is how we all are,
Mm-hmm.
we're all part of this together, and
Yeah.
it becomes normalized that we forget about ourselves. But if you're listening to this, take this as your nudge from the universe that you have to start taking care of yourself. Even if you're being told that you should wait, or that it's not important, you have to start listening to those little signals. And maybe it is sleepless nights, maybe it's headaches, maybe it's inflammation that you're experiencing, maybe you just feel off or fatigued or lethargic. Those are your little signs that are actually big signs that are telling you that your body does not want to be in survival mode anymore, and you have to start listening to it.
Yeah. One of the things I ask is when I give big speeches, when I can see a nice show of hands, so other people can kind of feel that also, is I ask, how many of you, you wanted to use the bathroom at like 9 a.m. and it's 2 p.m. You're on your like fifth or sixth meeting and you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't gone yet. Or you felt thirsty and then hours later you're like, oh, I haven't even drunk water yet. And so if we were to hear that, or our children or our loved ones told us that, we would be upset with them, because it is sort of this form of self-neglect, right? And so it's like, well, what are we trying to prove here by neglecting even our basic needs, but then wanting these esteem needs to be met when we're not even fulfilling our basic human need, right?
Yeah.
Skipping lunch, right? And thinking this is some badge of honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then we teach our system to not even trust ourselves that we can supply those basic needs. And then our brain says, well, I can't even trust me. And then what do you think something does when it can't trust? It goes even more into survival mode. Like, if you're not even going to give me water when I'm thirsty, like, what are you going to do when something big happens? And then it just perpetuates the whole cycle. So
literally, it's almost, so in my case with the I have Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune for thyroid, hypothyroidism. It's like your body's literally attacking itself. And so that's what we get into. Hair loss, weight gain. I mean, for me, it went to the extreme. I was in a COVID task force during 2020, working, I don't know, 16-hour days, whatever. It was tumultuous. Yeah. And just coming off of that, we all start getting into mental wellness, anxiety, depression. We haven't even processed losses that have happened in the past couple of years. We're just, oh my gosh, you just got to keep moving forward. And sometimes if you don't slow down and like let everything catch up to you and process it in a healing, intentional manner, it will catch up to you the other way, like a wall that you're going to run into, right?
Oh, totally. And a lot of times it's like, I'm sure people have experienced this. You have some kind of crisis and then you hold it together, you compose yourself, you're somewhat rational working through it. And when it's over, quote, over, then everything just crashes then, and you don't even realize the buildup of what you're experiencing. And then everything just kind of falls apart. You're like, why do I feel like this? Because it almost seems like a delayed reaction, but that's your system holding it together because you're saying that it needs to. And then it comes a time where it's that release, and then everything falls after that.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur, a busy professional, or a passionate parent, life is hectic. And the last thing you want is to feel more overwhelmed trying to fit in all the self-care recommendations that you hear. That's why I created my free 12-minute wellness habits guide that gives you the most important things that you can do throughout the day to feel renewed energy and clarity throughout your life without feeling like you have another job to do. Download it in the description today. That.
Yeah. And people have to make decisions on when you gather information about yourself, right? And in my experience, when I put folks through my program, the first month is just spent getting a baseline, right? Like with any experience or any experiment or any paper you're writing, anything, any basic kind of project you're doing, you want to understand current state. And in the understanding of the current state, when you figure out, okay, my systems are bad, my blood work is off, my relationships are crap, I'm not where I want to be anywhere in the things that matter, but I'm doing really well in my career. It's like, okay, if you were 80 years old in a rocking chair and boom, life over, and you were reflecting on your regrets, there would be so many.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so we, I think in this pocket, have a shorter runway in front of us
Mm-hmm.
than behind us, but it's still a runway where we can make some changes and lift that plane off in a different direction, right?
Yeah.
And so in the knowing comes the power to make more intentional decisions and be more purposeful. And, you hear people tossing around, manifesting the life you want or designing your life. It is legitimately so. I mean, I moved cross country. I quit my full-time 6-figure federal job where people stay until, the cows come home. Right? I walked away from that. I mean, people literally, my family was like, are you going through, like, what is happening? I had to leave it all behind because chasing this security and this notion of what made me significant in the world was not actually making me fulfilled and happy.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't anything I was really passionate about. I was so good at it.
Yeah. And that
You're
takes
still calling me a year later. I'm kidding, but
they want you back. Don't do it.
but for most of us, we stay, and I would always say, this is something I say, and I'm gonna just ask you: would you go to a doctor at the recommendation of a friend, and the friend said, "This doctor is a 5 out of 10, but you should still go to him"? Would you go to that doctor?
No, I mean,
Would you go to a restaurant that was rated 5 out of 10?
No.
Would you date someone if we were dating?
No.
Right? And so
Yeah.
why live your life at a 5?
100%. Yep.
You're like, I'm okay. It's fine. I'm not doing well, but it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're coasting at a 5.
Mm-hmm.
And man, just some tiny incremental shifts consistently gaining momentum takes you to even an 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
Way of living, the way that you get up in the morning and you're freaking happy and you're like, oh my God, I'm in the sunshine all the time, perpetual Florida sunshine. But that was a choice also.
Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of courage too to leave something like that, because there's a sense of certainty. There's a sense of security when you have the money coming in, you've been at the job, you're good at what you do.
Even now I'm like, did I make the right decision? Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's like a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Taking risks to live a more fulfilled, beautiful life. Those risks come with massive rewards, but it is still a muscle that you've got to flex and build and make it resilient. Because even if we weren't making big, courageous moves and we were staying where we are, we're still taking a risk on the other end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
In the other direction, closer to sickness, closer to sleepless nights, closer to anti-anxiety medication. So pick your poison, literally.
Yeah. That's it. We're always so quick to judge what it's going to cost us to make the jump, but we never look at what it's going to cost us to stay. And
I had a client once, and we were talking about some changes, and she was putting up a lot of resistance to these things. And one of the things that she said was, I'm becoming more and more anxious in this. She was in a really tenable job situation and all of that stuff. And she's like, I think I'm going to talk to my doctor about upping my medication. And I said, I want you to pause for a second and recognize that you are choosing to stay in this pocket and further medicate, even though right now you're experiencing so many side effects of the medication, then making these changes, which are also hard, but lead you closer to better health, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we are making choices. Even staying at a 5 is a choice. And so sometimes it's like, well, maybe we should stop complaining if we're okay with status quo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, what are we willing to accept? And it comes down to willingness. Are you willing to make the changes that maybe can move you in a different direction? That's willingness. And it's also willingness. Are you willing to stay and accept this as your life? Yeah. And it's literally, you have to pick one, because
very sobering.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we get stuck in these ruts because our brain likes what's familiar. So if it knows it's familiar, it wants to go back, it seems, quote, safe, even though it's not going to lead you in the direction maybe you desire. But it's sometimes easy just to be complacent and stay where you are than to make then to really look at yourself and be like, I am choosing this. Because when we kind of take the responsibility off ourselves and be like, oh, well, this is just how it is. I'm stuck. I have no choices. It's so disempowering. But when you start realizing that it is truly your choice and you're either choosing to stay or you're choosing to go, it becomes difficult, but it's also empowering. It's empowering because you like, it's your choice to do that. And it doesn't have to be these ginormous leaps necessarily, but maybe start with something small, see how it goes. And then you can start moving into those big leaps.
Yeah. One of the big pockets of work that I help people with is understanding and identifying their core values. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure people have done this in many different ways, but the difference with this one is we create rules for your core values, because without letting your body, your mind, your everything know when you've hit the mark, when you've hit the goal, everything is just a free for all. And so it's this constant, if a core value for you is achievement, okay, great, that's admirable. But when's your cup full? Mm-hmm. And that's the baseline, right? We're not saying once you hit that, don't achieve anything beyond it. But I'm saying, when do you know that you are an achiever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you don't have a litmus test for, okay, yeah, no. And for me, so my top core value is love. Mm-hmm. And the trick is, if you're going to do this on your own, which I highly recommend, or maybe what I'll do is maybe share a freebie or something and people can do it on their own. But my core value is love, and these are my rules. Mm-hmm. When my dog greets me, mm-hmm. Who has a pet that doesn't run out, except if it's a cat? Cats don't care that much about your happiness, but dogs will come and their tails are wagging and their face is happy and they're like, mm-hmm. Oh, hi, you're here. Yeah. Right? He will never fail me at that unless he's sick or something. The other rule is when the sun kisses my face. Mm-hmm. Folks, I live in Florida. Mm-hmm. This is on the daily, and I'm outside pretty much every day. Yeah. When I drink water and hydrate my system, I will tell you that by 8 a.m., I've met all my rules for how I feel love and how I absorb love into myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm just happy with whatever else happens. Yeah. But if I walk around saying, oh, well, my husband didn't say I love you this morning, the kids didn't kiss me, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. You walk around just searching. It's like, the compass, mm-hmm. searching for north. It's every which way. And so find simple rules for what will make you feel successful. Maybe it's a certain dollar figure. Maybe it's a certain degree. I don't know, a certification. But give yourself these tiny little wins. For me, health and vitality is a big one. I'm not going to go out there and be like, oh, I want a Victoria's Secret body. Mm-hmm. I'm not built like that. But I do want to walk up and down the stairs without things hurting like they used to a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. I do want to run and not feel like I am dying after running for a block. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And here's a trick. Every year, up the ante.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm. So give yourself that certainty. Give yourself that security. Give your body that assurance and have that integrity with yourself. That I've got you.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how it's so actionable. It's so concrete. Yes. It's something you can literally put your finger on.
Yeah, we're not talking about quantum physics. I mean, some of it is at play, but mm-hmm. Let's not get into that. But tiny little shifts that really over time consistently bake it into your system, and you will see results, and mm-hmm. it will inspire bigger and better results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a true science behind that too. When you celebrate those little wins, and you're talking about love, like those are all wins. When your dog greets you, that's a win, and you recognize that and you own it and you feel it. That actually increases your dopamine in your brain, which is that reward circuit.
All of the good things are happening.
You going. So literally there's a science behind it. It's not just like, putting out there's a science. This is how your brain is wired. So you have to use the wiring of your brain and to really cultivate this life that you want. And it does, like, that's why I love those actionable tips you just gave, because it does actually give you that journey of like how
you confidence, right? You're like, yes. Oh, if I just set a goal randomly and say, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds by March 30th. Mm-hmm. Okay. That may be feasible. Mm-hmm. with a cook and like a a trainer, and you know, with the right staff
Yep.
or the right time and the right courage and the right everything. But if you haven't been doing that for decades, unless something imperative happens to you and it is a must that you do that and it's been done, you will do it. But if you're just a normal person trying to like lose a tremendous amount of weight, and I use weight because, you know, that's kind of the first thing women are hard on themselves with is their bodies.
Absolutely. And what's the
I,
why
I,
behind that too?
yes,
Are you
I was
doing
in this,
losing
and
weight
I
for
think we
someone else?
talked about this,
Yeah.
Kelly. I went to a Rachel Hollis event many years ago, right before the pandemic, and it was about 4,000 women at this conference, and one of the questions was, "How many of you hate your bodies?" And everybody stood up, pretty
Oh
much everybody.
gosh. Wow.
And I think the youngest person there was maybe 13,
Oh
and
wow.
the oldest person was either in their 60s or 70s. And so the decade span of us despising our home, our
Mm-hmm.
home isn't this or
Yeah.
the world or our home is this.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
we take this anywhere we go.
Absolutely. And then if you the hatred is like when there's hatred, there can't be gratitude. So then when you lack gratitude for the fact that this body carries you where you want to go, allows you to
Yeah.
see the world, allows you to experience the world and be hugged by your child, or, it allows you
I
forever
love
to
that.
do everything. And
Yeah.
it's like that breaks my heart that everybody in the room said they hated their body. Because
Yeah.
it's our
Everybody.
vessel. It's our vessel for carrying and allowing us to experience life and do everything that's we're destined to do, the greatness we're supposed to experience here. Oh my gosh.
It broke my heart. I still think about that whole experience. And there was a bigger exercise around it, but that
Mm-hmm.
one question, I don't know, man, it really gutted me because I have a daughter. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that in my family, so I'm South Asian. And so in an Indian family, there's so many comments about weight and all of this stuff, right? And it's so a little bit toxic, to be honest. But um, it's things we grew up with. And people feel really at liberty when we were younger to talk about our bodies and to have access to us. And so the reclaiming that power for
Mm-hmm.
many of us is still so hard. And it is personal power.
Yeah.
It is you having boundaries with who has access to you and who doesn't, and what you say yes to and what you don't, and what you projects you pick, charities you donate to or give up your time to, like claiming back that power. We're not cogs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
You
And
know, we want to sit around and act like cogs, but we're not cogs. We're like, we have the power to do what we want to do. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about taking back our power, but that is one of those avenues that it's like when those subconscious beliefs are very easily developed when people are commenting on your body, and then you internalize that as being your worth. And it can really mess you up for a long time. I've struggled with that myself for many years, where I thought the appearance of my body was determining my worth. And it can really anchor you into some really bad patterning. So it is so important to realize that. But yes, I mean, we are meant for so much more than just trying to form ourselves into this mold that we think is going to make us feel fulfilled or feel worthy or whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
we're meant for so much more than that.
There's a post-it in my bathroom. I read this and it stayed with me a couple of years ago. It said, "I am a human being, not a human doing."
I love that.
And I was like, oh,
That's so
so
good.
good.
That's so good. Just the
And when I'm on the
simplicity of
busy
that.
trail, right? Like, I listen, this is an unpopular opinion. I don't believe that we can do it all at the same time. That's
Yeah.
my caveat.
Yeah.
That we have to prioritize, we have to have a plan, we've got to give ourselves enough time, we've got to give ourselves enough grace for when the train runs off the track, getting it back on, building in that resiliency. But when you go full steam ahead and you are trying to be a good mother, and spend time with, in my case, I'm a mom, I'll speak for myself, and run your own business and curate friendships and network and do social media, and like it's really easy to go up in a flame of yuck. So really prioritizing month to month, and I live my life in quarters. So every 90 days I do a plan for what that looks like to get me closer to what my 5-year goals are. And I used to be a strategic I am a strategic planner. That's my innate superpower is the 30,000-foot level and then breaking it down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to say that even in your life, think about small things. If you're going on a picnic, you're going to plan that out. You're going to buy ingredients. You're going to get your basket. You're going to get your eating utensils. You're going to map the drive. You're going to have a blanket. Like we do these things innately anyway.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So plan also for the bigger things. And this is such a great opportunity going into a new year for many people to really sit and say, hey, what's important to me? How do I want to kind of build my activities, my actions, my life around it? And yeah, you run your life. Don't let other people run it for you in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. And because it is that overwhelm is the enemy of action. And if you think of having to reach that peak, you may say, oh, that's way too much. I won't even start. And that's literally the worst thing you can do. But I love how when you talk about breaking it down, it just makes it feel more manageable and that you can get to just the next step. You don't have to worry about the peak, just get to the next summit, and that's it.
Yeah. There will be valleys. I mean, I had major surgery unexpectedly during the summer. So I left my corporate job in December, actually last year. Mm-hmm. Massive success, best-selling international book, like all of the things happened the first half of the year. Massive health scare leading to surgery, leading to 2 months of recovery. Mm-hmm. And I had a hysterectomy. I mean, talking about health. Mm-hmm. I had a cancer scare, uterine cancer scare. And unplanned. Right? Mm-hmm. You can't plan for that.
Yeah.
Completely cut my legs out. Mm-hmm. Income dried up, like all of the things. And I was like, instead of going into a state of extreme panic, I was like, well, I jumped into coaching and I jumped into all these speaking engagements and I jumped into the deep end and am I on the right track? And so in that healing and that for the first time in my life, like just laying down, not doing anything, I had time to think, which I'd never had before. I was like, okay, I need to make some different intentions for the latter part of the year. And so that's what I've been doing is slowly recurating. And so I say that deliberately because stuff's going to happen. And there is, unfortunately, our grandmothers and our grandfathers were right when they gave us all these trite sayings. There is a silver lining.
Absolutely.
Right? Or a light at the end of the tunnel, whatever you want to call it. But for me, it was in that pause, I was able to really have even more clarity on what I don't want to do, what I don't want to say yes to, and kind of what my pillars were going to be. So for you, hopefully it's not something drastic. It's a deliberate, intentional, hey, I'm going to stop this car that's careening in every direction and figure out where I'm going and map out some milestones and some fun things to do. And then I'm going to go there.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it is like the only certainty we have in life is that uncertainty will happen. So like, that's it. It's like, we can't stop uncertainties, but it's how do you move forward with it?
How do you bounce back?
That's it. Like, you can make the choice of like, this is it, everything's done. Or you can be like, okay, I'm going to use this, learn from it and figure out what the direction is. And I love that. And it is like, so many times people get into autopilot. They don't know where they're going, don't have the vision. And it's like, of course things aren't happening, but when you can get focused on what do I want, not what people are telling me I want, or what I think I'm capable of, even it's like, what do I actually want in life? And then start moving that direction. That's a beautiful thing, a gift you can give yourself, especially in those quiet moments when you have them.
And we forget that we're not alone in any of these thoughts, any of these feelings, any of these learned behaviors, any of these helpless feeling of helplessness and overwhelm. Like it is literally the majority of women, right? And if you're not doing the work, if you're not talking to and consuming, whether it's your podcast or podcasts in general, or your Instagram feed is full of like people that make you feel worse about yourself. It is, they always say you're a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so be really intentional that your fifth, I'm wiggling my thumb if you're not watching, your 5th person can be a compilation of just beautiful, curated, real, authentic mentors and coaches. And even if you can't afford a coach, like there's so many beautiful free things out there that you can start implementing in your life. And for me, with teens, it is really important to me that not only am I breaking some just generational trauma type stuff as a woman of color, as an immigrant, as all of those things, but to show my children that it's really, they can live differently. They can design their ideal day. They can choose what they get worked up about. They do have a choice in how they show up for their friends and knowing what their core values were.
Yeah.
I do this fun exercise where I call it, my daughter's name is Alyssa Incorporated. And I'm like, this is your company. These are the people that you have collaborations with. And I'm like, mom, dad, the dog, right? Your brother. And I'm like, what do you want from this relationship? What do you want from this one? Who are you in this relationship?
Yeah.
Because she's 17, so she's not a child anymore.
Yeah.
She's getting ready and thinking about college. And I have to slowly figure out, how do I prep her on this bridge to being fully independent? And then my son's 13, Adam. How do I prep him to go into high school where the rules are different? And so even with my nieces and nephews, like, you do have a responsibility, even if you are not a parent. I'm sure you know young people or people generationally younger than you and older than you, like grow across generations. There's stuff we don't know. Most of my neighbors are probably 10, 12 years older than I am. Their kids have flown the nest. But when I met them, my kids were, 4 and I think 7. And their kids were teenagers. And so I learned.
Yeah.
So have friends that are generationally different from you. Like, don't just be in an echo chamber.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Like broaden your life in a way that enriches not only your being, but what you give back to in terms of energy, vibration, value to others. You can't just be a taker. It doesn't work like that.
Absolutely.
Because the universe will take good account
Yes.
and proceed to slap you around a little bit, right?
That's right. No, I couldn't agree more though. Like it's so true. And really just embracing people who are different from you. And I love that, like the generation, like I used to work older adults. I can't tell you how much I learned from older adults. Like I loved working with them because it was so eye-opening and their perspective was so beautiful. And it is so true. Just going outside yourself and just learning something different, because we tend to be drawn to people who are more similar to us. So when you start to go to people who are different, you're like, oh my gosh, like you can see a different perspective. And one thing you're talking about, like with your kids, I love that, because sometimes we get stuck in this pattern of like, I can't take care of myself because I got to take care of my kids, but you're taking care of your kids by taking care of yourself. Like when you have an elevated mindset and you recognize that you're doing your own self-care and you're taking care of yourself, your kids see that. And I don't know if you follow Milet, but he talks about, most things are caught, not taught. And that's it. Your kids are going to catch what you are doing instead of just getting what you're teaching them.
Listen, they've watched us.
Yeah.
Me in particular, thank gosh. So I've been married for 20 years, you guys. That's a long time to be with one human, but we work, we match. We're aligned, I should say, but they've watched us truly struggle and do the work, and we are very honest with them about our humanity. Like, I'm not some perfect mom out here. I'll cuss a little bit and, cry and, they see my frustration with, for me, it's, I was on an autoimmune protocol diet, which was so hard. And I would like literally be crying because I was like, I would do anything for a piece of for a Chick-fil-A. You know what I mean? And so my son did, YouTube, he's 13. He found this video on Beyond Burgers. This is a couple of years ago. And he called a family meeting. And he said, I found a place that serves this burger. And we're going to all go and have lunch, the same lunch with mom.
Oh, I love it.
And I just ugly cried my way through the whole drive.
Goosebumps. That's so sweet. Oh my God.
But you're teaching them also to be, have empathy and be present, not only with us as parents, but with each other. And yeah, oh my God, they're going through a lot of angst, right? And post the pandemic, I think a lot of
Yeah.
our kids are struggling and they don't want to burden us. So we actually don't know what they're struggling with truly unless we create inroads to have those conversations. And that starts with us being courageous and vulnerable, same, two sides of the same coin. And saying, hey, I still, when I go into a big room, I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot of people. And you feel a little bit of overwhelmed because that muscle hasn't been used for a while.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, and I love that, just having that communication, like, listen, I'm not like, this is what I'm experiencing, and that it's okay to experience that. And I'm still going to do the best I can do in this moment. And like that is just such a beautiful gift to your kids, is that vulnerability, because that can be really challenging when you don't see that expressed from your parents, or you think that everything's just great and you don't see the other side of things. And that again is a gift to your kids, to be like, it's okay to not be okay in moments.
You said when you talked about, what did you say that quote was?
Most things are caught, not taught.
Right. So to put a pin in that, so we're taping this right before Christmas. So that's the context of where we are right now. And a couple of years ago, so we went to this 24-hour Christmas store, and we all bought secret ornaments for each other to put in our stocking stuffers. And Christmas morning, we came down early and we're all in our pajamas opening our stocking stuffers. And my husband's ornament from the kids was a motorcycle. He rides a motorcycle, and you know what mine was? A laptop.
Oh,
yeah. A laptop Christmas ornament. I
So
still think about it, and I feel my throat closing up a little bit. I still have it to remind me. It's on our tree right now. But that's how they saw me, as always working, always busy, not having time for them. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, I'm still in survival mode, right? I came to this country with half a suitcase. It's all about security for me and certainty. I am doing this for them. I'm having them live close access to a beach. We have lakes and places to walk and the best of everything. And they're just seeing this mom that's inaccessible. So you're absolutely right. That laptop has become this symbol to me to not go back there.
Oh my gosh. I love that story, because that just anchors it down. It really does, because in your head, you're thinking you're doing all these things for your kids, but then your kids are receiving it in a different way. And it's, it's all.
And they will never tell us that, right?
Yeah. No.
Because they see the sacrifice and they also are sacrificing. And so when we are missing all the games, and in their mind, work comes first. And in our mind, it's what brings us the most satisfaction, because guess what? It's easy to control.
Yeah.
Instead of our life and the level 5 we're living at.
Yeah. Right.
Right. But they are seeing that as a choice that you are making to be less accessible, available. They think they are less of a priority. And I'm still working on that years later, right? But even me with my parents, they had to struggle and work 2-3 jobs to they had 5 kids. So it's this cycle of, we think we are doing the best, but it is our best, but maybe we just have to change the perspective and less emphasis on that and more emphasis on, well, if I'm happy and I'm doing what I love and I can pick things and work with people and impact and influence things important to me that make me happy. So it's not this drudgery and prison to go to work. And I'm complaining every Monday. I love Mondays. I'm like, who am I going to talk to this week?
Yes. Yes.
You can't do that, right?
Yeah. And then you show up with a different energy. It's such a different energy. And your kids feel that. And if kids are very intuitive, they can sense that energy.
People too. I mean, do you think anybody wants to work with a 5? They're going to pop on and I'm going to be like, well, welcome to my, great time. And they're going to be like, what?
Girl? You're like, please, when this is over.
Think about it. If you were a realtor, if you were an investment banker, if you people will work with people that they like. And if
Absolutely.
you are at the table humming at a 5, bro,
Hmm.
they're gonna know.
Oh,
Sorry, I
totally.
dropped the bro there. My son is
Oh,
like,
you're fine. That's,
he called me bra the other day, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm your mother." Like, I
oh my
can't. I
gosh.
understand that we have a good relationship, but that one's too far. We just
That's so
both started cackling.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
My 4-year-old is calling everybody baby now. They're like, all right,
Oh,
come on over
that's
here,
cute
baby.
though.
It's so good. It's so funny.
I would love that. What's up, baby? I would love it.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
baby.
especially probably so tiny. Oh my God.
It's so cute. I know. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cute.
As long as they're not winking like this guy from Friends, Joey's like, "How you doing?"
Yeah, right? Yes. That's so funny.
Oh
Oh my
man.
gosh. I feel like we could talk all day about this. Like this has just been such an amazing conversation. And I'm absolutely so grateful for you to be here and to have this conversation with you and share this, because everything that's come out has really, it's just gold, and I really hope that whoever's listening to this, you take just even one thing and you just move your life forward in a different direction. So thank you so much, Stacey. And for someone who wanted to connect with you, follow you, get involved with everything you have going on, can you share where they can find you in best place?
Absolutely. So the two places I hang out the most are LinkedIn, and that's Stacey Luces, at Stacey Luces, STACEYLUCES, and on Instagram, Stacey.Luces. And then you can find links in my bio to connect with me. And I would, if this really resonates with you and it is something that you want to pursue further, I'd love the opportunity to have a chat with you, or really just give you a complimentary clarity session and just help you get started. And I will be having a group coaching that kicks off in February 2024. It's a small, intimate group. It's 6 weeks, and we do so many things that really amplify and expand what it is you want to do and gives you a clear path forward. I love a good plan. And so I like to do things that are tangible and spiritual and, all of the things. But I feel like our generation, Kelly, we want the nuts and bolts, and we
That's
want
it.
the things that we can implement,
Yes.
and we're doers.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'd love that. And thank you for the work that you are doing and for trusting me, not only with your story, but with your community. And I hope you have hundreds of more episodes.
Oh, thank you so much. And no, I genuinely am so grateful for you being here. And for everyone who's here, definitely check out the show notes, follow Stacey, and definitely get involved in everything she has going on. And thank you again for being part of this community. And thank you, Stacey, for being here today.
Thanks so much.
Hey there. Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope it serves you well to start rewiring your brain to create the life you desire. If you found value in this, please share it with a friend and tag me on Facebook or Instagram at Dr. Kelly Kessler.